Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Kunzman, managing editor of Contagion, joined for another virtual conference video interview as part of our ongoing COVID-19 coverage. Today's call coming internationally from Dr. Noam Tao, study lead researcher for a new cohort assessment that we're going to get to in just a moment. Dr. Tao is from the Department of Diagnostic Imaging at Israel's Shiva Medical Center. But just to lay some groundwork before we get into this topic, obviously the biggest discussion that we're having right now in terms of COVID developments and trends in the US and frankly internationally pertains to the role of the vaccine race and the candidates that are at play now. And a larger discussion that we're hoping to have right now, obviously with these candidates moving at an unprecedented pace of development and research and discussion of such research before progressing towards the next clinical stage towards pipeline approval has been safety and the concerns that maybe the laymen and even physicians who would be advising patients on these vaccines would feel comfortably in managing them. So Dr. Tao, before we get into your team's study, first and foremost, how are you doing right now?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, really appreciate that. We can connect across a few hours time zones difference, and I'm sure your time is highly valuable right now. So I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, let's just get into this cohort assessment. And Dr. Tao, if you can maybe set the stage for us a little bit and give us a brief background as to what your team was hoping to assess and what the details were.
To put it quite simply, we were trying to assess the ways the FDA monitors, first of all, approves and then monitors safety in newly developed vaccines. Some of those vaccines have hit the media in the last few years, and we had a feeling that the FDA is doing a very good job in monitoring them. Although as researchers, we were always hoping to kill the giants and see that they weren't doing such a good job. But what we did is assess the original vaccine drug labels that were put aside the minute the vaccine was approved. And then we followed on all the subsequent labels, and specifically we looked for any safety-related changes in those labels. And we were trying to see if those were significant or not, how fast the FDA came around to finding them, and did it change, and to see if it changed anything in the FDA's way of treating the specific vaccine. We were very happy to see that the vast majority of vaccines approved since 1996 had a very, very good safety profile. The vast majority of those side effects were significantly mild. Some of them are just potential ones, as allergies to latex, which has almost never occurred, but has been assessed by the FDA. And the single vaccine that had slightly worse safety profile than expected, the RotaShield, the original rotavirus vaccine, was quickly withdrawn from market after the FDA system for monitoring flagged this vaccine as worrisome and just stopped using quite rapidly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tao. And before we expand a little bit more on those findings and what exactly their implication is into COVID, relevant to COVID, I think it's important to emphasize discussion around exactly those mild symptoms, because as you said, stressing that, what was observed was generally what clinicians anticipate and researchers anticipate in terms of side effects from a vaccination. Whereas I can tell you right now, at least through our social media channels for Contagion, a lot of the discussion and concern around vaccine candidates, including Moderna, which is now at phase 3, was the high prevalence of these anticipated side effects. Can you talk a little bit about what was observed and what exactly, I guess, differentiates from anticipated and of concern to a clinician?
Yeah, so first of all, the vast majority of those vaccines and the vaccines that were approved previously were approved through the RCT trials, through the randomized controlled trials, which means that they gave the drug versus other older vaccinations or placebo in less common cases to see if they were both efficacious and had and to examine their safety profiles. And as those studies are of limited size, although big, they are of limited size. We had a median of a bit more than 4,000 participants in each of those studies. Some side effects are even rarer than that. In the case of RotaShield, the simple case of intussusception occurred in 1 to 5 to 1 to 10,000 cases. And if you have 4,000 participants in the study, you might not see it in the original study. But in the post-marketing period, once the vaccine hits the market and has become widespread, and we know it's worldwide, it's not only in the US. Once this has become widespread, data flows into the FDA's data center directly from the American physicians, from the American insurance companies, and from the European Medicines Association, and from all sorts of medical companies, other companies making similar vaccines. And the FDA's job is to see whether those side effects are the ones that the original study talked about. Let's say fever after some of the vaccines, local pain, some erythema, some vaccines may cause fainting in children. These are all acceptable, but other less common side effects are unacceptable by the FDA, and these are the ones that the FDA is monitoring. We were happy to see that the occurrences of those side effects are so rare and almost unheard of that the FDA did not find it necessary to change anything in the vaccine labels. And we see that in other similar vaccines used in Europe and in Asia, similar changes have been made, which are small, insignificant changes in labels without any new significant data arising in recent years.
Wow. That's very interesting, and I guess it certainly speaks to the potency of higher trial populations that we have when it reaches that point. Certainly, when we're speaking on safety, that's the true value of it. I mean, efficacy, we can see, if 1 in 10 has like a high response or high immunogenicity, then we know the potential's there. But what's crucial for safety is to have a wider array of patient population, correct? So how does that reflect, I guess, in our current standing right now of COVID research and the ones that are progressing?
So I follow the new studies being performed by Moderna and AstraZeneca and all the other companies that have started the phase 1 and phase 2 trials. And if you put aside a few of the companies like Moderna, most of the technologies used are actually old-fashioned, well-known, well-tested technologies that we know that are basically safe to produce vaccines. The other thing is that although the FDA is trying to rush into producing the vaccine, they will not allow for small-scale studies to be performed. That's why each and every one of these trials has to recruit about 30,000 people, if I remember the number correctly, in places with high prevalence of COVID-19, of SARS-CoV-2, like Brazil, like unfortunately the US, now it's becoming more and more common in India. So we know that although studies have been performed in the past on thousands of people, not tens of thousands, and still these were enough to pinpoint any safety issues, the FDA is demanding very, very, very big studies according to discussions they had to find those rare side effects early on in the trial process and not putting them into market and then finding something happen.